Hello everyone, it's Ren here. Hope you're doing great, guys. Please do not be freaked out by my clean-shaven face. I wasn't planning to be clean-shaven, I was using this like clipper to keep the stubble that I like to keep, but I messed up and now I look like, I don't know what I look like, but hopefully it's not too weird. We're going to talk about Enneagram 6 today, and part of why we're going to talk about Enneagram 6 is because, well, I made a video yesterday where I discussed Enneagram 4 and why I thought that, Enneagram 4 deserved a slightly longer discussion. In fact, we discussed that Enneagram over the length of 2 videos because I think that there's a lot of misleading information being conveyed online and dubious interpretations of that Enneagram. It's an easy Enneagram to misunderstand and misinterpret, partly because it seems to be the quintessentially individualistic Enneagram, and there's lots of different kinds of people that fall under this particular category, right? And so if you check that video, or if you haven't checked it, maybe the last 2 videos that I made on INFJs and Enneagram 4, I talk about the fact that it's often confused, or often people who think they're 4 tend to be 5 or 6. And logically enough, I'm now making a video on Enneagram 6, but I will also be making a video on Enneagram 5, don't worry about that. And it's likely that I will be making this video at the weekend, but first Enneagram 6, and you'll understand why I'm deciding to focus on that. Now, just before I move on, just be aware that my new book, The Infinite Soul, is available at the link below. It's right down there, right? First link you see, you click on it, you can get the paperback version or the ebook version. It's just fresh out of the oven, it's beautiful, and can't wait to show it to you. I actually don't have it in my hands yet, which is the irony of the situation, but I'll have it in my hands very soon, and obviously as soon as I receive it, I'll be making a video with it to present it to you. And can't wait to hear what you think, guys. So far, I've received some messages saying that people started reading the book and they are enjoying it a lot so far, so hopefully that kind of feedback will continue. And as you probably know, but maybe not, The Infinite Soul is a sequel to a best-selling book on the INFJ called The Ecstatic Soul. And if you haven't got The Ecstatic Soul, it goes very well together with The Infinite Soul. 2 books to understand the INFJ. This one focuses on the inner workings of the INFJ mind. Principally, The Infinite Soul takes the baggage of what's learned from the Ecstatic Soul and brings it into the everyday world, INFJ life in the modern world, how to live as an INFJ a rich, fulfilling, meaningful life. So they go very well together, and it's my suggestion that you get the 2 together. There's also The Infinite Castle, which is a novel that I wrote a few years ago, and the rumor has it the main character is an INFJ, so explored from a fictional perspective. You'll notice that the Ecstatic Soul and the Infinite Castle have been sort of followed by the Infinite Soul, so now there are people joking that my next book will be called The Ecstatic Castle, but this remains to be seen. There's also a link to my Patreon page, by the way, guys, if you want to support my work. That is always hugely useful. Okay, so now returning to the question of Enneagram 6 and INFJs. I've made videos about Enneagram 6 before. I've made videos on Enneagram 6, and I've also made videos specifically on Enneagram 6 and INFJs. But these videos are a little bit old now. They're over a year old, maybe some of them are nearly 2 years old, so it's definitely time for a refresh. An extra motivation I have for wanting to do this refresh is that the points that I made in those videos, which I think to this day are really good videos I made, I'm very happy with them. I would not change much of what I said in them. Maybe my understanding of these types has evolved, and become even richer since then, but the essential point remains the same. But I have to admit, and I have to observe, that some or many of the points I made in those videos about Enneagram 6, it's not that they haven't carried through or that they haven't really been listened to or registered by people or my audience. I think it could simply be that, they've been, maybe a couple thousand people watch those videos, and obviously only a section will have found the demonstrations or the arguments compelling enough to at least take on board what I was saying. So there's probably a lot of people that are watching this video right now that are still operating with an understanding of type 6 that I at least personally would consider really impoverished. I think the word is really impoverished. I think that's what I need to convince you of now, okay? And it's really an argument that I want to develop in parallel with what I was saying about type 4, which is why I'm choosing to discuss type 6 before I discuss type 5. As always, in relation to INFJs, at least the INFJ angle is prominent in my analysis and in my discussion. So, first of all, if my argument is that we need a new understanding of type 6, this implies that the current understanding of type 6 is not satisfactory, is lacking in some crucial respects. And so why is it lacking in some crucial respects? I think the simplest way you could put it, the current understanding that people have of type 6 and why it's lacking in some crucial respect, it's not operative as a definition and as a working conception, is that type 6 is a default type. Type 6 is a neutral type. Type 6 is an empty type. Type 6, because it is empty, doesn't have any substance. If you propose a classification of 9 types, say, principally 9 types, and then you can specify further with wings or with tri-types, but let's just stay at the level of this 9 main types now, 1, 2, 9. You'll notice that they each have a certain kind of substance. 1 has an ethical substance. 2 has a sort of social substance. 3 has a social substance as well, but it's very different from 2. It's more linked to a certain kind of recognition by peers. 4 has a substance, it's a substance of the bohemian individualist. 5 has a substance, it's the sort of independent, autonomous, isolated kind of researcher, intellectual. Type 7 has a substance, it's the sort of gluttonous, adventurous, experience seeking. 8 has a substance. We all know what the substance of 8 is. And in fact, even 9 has a substance, because 9 is the kind of type that is highly attuned to a particular kind of key in the social sphere, in their own sphere, is very intuitive type, that we know what it means to have type 9 intuitions, right? We know what it means to have type 8 intuitions, or make type 8 kind of decisions, type 7 intuitions, type 4 intuitions, type 2 intuitions, and so on. Type 6 intuitions, if we operate with our current understanding of type 6, I don't know what it means. Because type 6 is just defined by a lack of something, it's not defined by a substance of what you possess. So type 6 is supposed to be a lack of security. It's supposed to be a lack of feeling of belonging somewhere. It's supposed to be a lack of intrinsic calmness. It's supposed to be a lack of self-confidence. Essentially, it's just, if you take all the properties of type 6, you'll notice it's never about what a type 6 uniquely possesses. It's always about what a type 6, why a person is a 6 is because a person is not this. It's because a person is not that, not secure, not confident, not this. Phobic, because essentially phobic means you're lacking something as well, right? Anxious, anxiously attached, so on and so forth. So there's no, if someone wrote a book, you could say, they discuss these themes, these are expressive of the 4-ness of the person, the author, or 5 or 7 or 8. Type 6, it's like, we don't know what it is. Type 6 is like, there's this big gap, there's this absence of something, and therefore this person might be type 6. Hence the idea that type 6 is a default type, hence the idea that type 6 is an empty type. It's empty in the sense that it doesn't have any substantial properties to bring to the table, which is incidentally why nobody wants to be type 6, and everybody will much prefer the idea of being a 4 because it's more glamorous, it's more romantic, or being a 5 for pretty much the same reasons, or being a 7 because it's cooler, or being a 1 because at least you have this dimension of dignity and ethical self-denial and, you know, self-abnegation, or you can do 2 because you give yourself for others. Who wants to be a 6? It's defined by empty properties, by what you lack. No one wants to be a 6. So it's and at the same time, everyone thinks that most people are 6s. Why does everyone think? You've noticed that in the community. Usually the people who say that don't think themselves as 6s, but they think that everyone else, or the majority of the population, is 6s. Why? It's easy. It's because they think that the vast majority of the population are sheep. I mean, it's harsh and it's direct, but that's the reason. Sheep that are looking for security and they're willing to abandon their individuality and their opinions just for the sake of being loyal to a leader that will tell them what to do, or an outside influence. They're just looking for security. They're not special in any way. They don't possess any real properties. They're the herd. They're the herd. The majority of the population is a herd, and in fact, I think you might make a point for this. But where we have to disagree is that this is supposed to link with 6, but that's not substance, right? That would just suggest that type 6 is whatever anyone who doesn't have enough personality to be themselves is a type 6. But that means that there's nothing unique to type 6. There's nothing that someone who's a type 6 can bring to the world. Someone who's a type 6 and say, it's great that I'm a type. Have you ever heard that? People say like, I'm a type 4 and it's great because X and Y, or 1 or 7. Sometimes they say it, sometimes they don't say it, but you feel it. Who would ever say like, you're lucky you're a type 6? No, it's always supposed to be this big lacking thing. And I'm not saying that we should disagree with this because it's unfair. I'm saying that there's no such thing as a type that is defined by an absence of properties. It doesn't make any sense philosophically, conceptually, or in any sense. Sure, there are people who are followers. There are people who belong to the herd, people who are plebs, people who are normies, there are people who are anxiously attached, people who are, who care a lot about tradition, who care a lot about what authorities have to say, so on and so forth. Those properties don't define a type. They define a certain set of personality traits, characteristics that are horizontal across the 9 types, in the same way that they're horizontal across the 16 MBTI types, right? You could make an argument, once you have a substantial definition of a type 6, the strengths of a type 6, the weaknesses of a type 6, the contradictions, the type 6 geniuses, you have a whole kind of profile, a historiography, a very rich understanding of a type 6, then maybe you can start thinking about why is it that, yes, we do often find people who are conservative, or not by any means all the time. Sometimes type 6s can be very rebellious and so on. But once you have a very deep understanding of the substance of type 6, then you can start, connecting these dots. But we just don't have that understanding yet. So of course, and now this is bringing it back to INFJs. Of course, INFJs are rarely going to identify as type 6, because nobody wants to identify as type 6. The only people who will be gladly identifying as type 6, I tell you what, there are people who don't care about so much about the personality types and the very matter of fact. So someone who might say, okay, yeah, I took the test because you forced me to, or someone told me to. I got ISTJ and I got 6, fair enough. And they don't really think about it because they don't care. But someone who's invested in personality types, and let's assume that it's healthy, nobody will be gladly embracing the idea that they're a type 6. So there is an intrinsic desire on the part of people to be something else. If we rehabilitate type 6, if we give it its stolen dignity as one of the 9 types, you'll notice that people will start flocking to type 6. There will be a lot more people identify as 6s. So what you'll have, instead of having like nobody being 6s, but everyone saying that everyone else is a 6 in the population, you'll have those claims, those other claims made a lot less, and people identifying as a 6. Because it's finally something that you can embrace, that you can own for yourself. Currently, INFJs won't do that because it's so dreadfully unromantic to be a 6. It's so dreadfully unexciting to be a 6 in the current understanding of type 6. And you know, that accounts, I'm convinced of it, for a large reason of why type 6 is just not something that people want to be or want to embrace or appropriate for themselves, identify as, use as a prism for how they understand themselves. And it's a great shame, not only because again we have this big gap in a substantial understanding, you know, description, understanding, definition of type 6. So it's a theoretical gap here, but there's also a gap in terms of what can help people in their everyday lives, because if they really are a type 6, it would significantly help them to understand that and appreciate that, and then function and sort of maybe lead journeys of self-description and motivation that is actually based in this understanding, rather than in the understanding of a type that there actually are not, like a type 4, for example, which often happens. So INFJ is no more than any other type, and I would say maybe even less. Somewhat like the INTJ, someone like, you know, a lot of NISE types, because they have this intensity and tunnel vision, often this sense of, you know, not necessarily that you have a destiny like you're a megalomaniac, but you do feel often, and if you're an INFJ, you feel that there's a certain something that you ought to be doing in the world. You have a calling, there's a calling somewhere. Often INFJs experience this calling. I've made videos on that before. There's a great discrepancy between the idea that you have a calling, that you're waiting to understand it and then follow it, and the current understanding of the 6 as someone who's essentially completely devoid of a calling and who's only security seeking and living in their little world where they can please people, protect themselves. It's completely disconnected. There's no connecting tissue here. So of course no INFJ wants to be a type 6, because it goes against the whole mystique of the INFJ, even the positive and constructive aspect of the mystique of the INFJ, right? If you reinterpret the 6 I think truly as it should be reinterpreted, then you realize you can connect the dots and things become easier. But of course it's going to take a lot of time, and currently I'll tell you, of course encounter INFJs who identify as 6s. They do. There should be many more INFJs identifying as 6s, but there still are. And I'll tell you from my experience, those INFJs who identify as 6s are either particularly honest, almost painfully honest INFJs, right? Very, very truth focused. Or they are people who have felt the calling but felt unable to quite follow it, and they almost take the acceptance of being a type 6 as their punishment. In other words, these INFJs are actually INFJs that they don't have a substantial view of the type 6. They do kind of agree with others that the type 6 is this empty type, you know, but they see it almost as a kind of their destiny, their fate for hearing the calling and not being able to follow through. So these INFJs often have a melancholy vibe. Anyway, this video has been going on way too long. It looks like I'm going to have to make another video on type 6, but I love discussing type 6. So at the weekend, another video on type 6 at some point, but also type 5. In the meantime, let me know about your comments. I bet many of you will not be in agreement with me, but that's great because it means that can spark discussion. Okay, take care guys, bye-bye.